Hello and welcome to the Supernatural Track here at Continual. I'm your host, Gail Martin, and tonight we are talking about holiday headcanons. Now, we got to see a very supernatural Christmas, and we got to see the last holiday with Mrs. Butters, and all those holidays they kind of, crammed into a short period of time. But what about all those other unsung holidays? All those Christmases and Thanksgivings on the road, the Easters, the Valentine's Day. What do you think the boys did on all of those days? We lost Melissa already.
Sorry.
So we're just going to let our imaginations run wild and talk about holiday headcanon. But first, let's let our wonderful panelists introduce themselves, starting with Lola.
My name's Lola Lariscy. I'm a writer and Supernatural fan for 17 years. I have a website, but it disappeared, and I've been trying to put it back, and it's not working.
Okay, fair enough. Melissa.
I'm Melissa. I've been a Supernatural fan since the pilot aired, and you can find me online on Twitter at Tin Hat Daydreams.
All right, Ann.
Hi, I'm Ann Wicker. I'm a writer and editor and former journalist, and I came late to the Supernatural party, but I went right down that rabbit hole, and I have been a fan since for about 4 or 5 years now, and really enjoy it. And I'm an unabashed Dean girl.
And I'm Gail Martin and Morgan Bryce. As Gail, I write epic and urban fantasy. As Morgan, I write urban fantasy, male paranormal romance. But all my modern worlds are ones Sam and Dean could walk into and feel right at home. I fell in love with the show halfway through season 11, binge watched 11 seasons in 4 months for the start of season 12. And that was the beginning of a long, wonderful obsession that shows no sign of waning anytime soon. So let's start with canon. We had a very supernatural Christmas, and we got some glimpses into the way the boys had spent some of their Christmases as kids, and now we got to see them the year before Dean's deal was through. Anything in particular jump out to you that might be clues for all those other unsung holidays from that episode? Lola.
Well, we're in luck because I rewatched that episode. I didn't rewatch the last one because I've watched that one like 3 times, and Mrs. Butters freaks me out. But I rewatched that one. So she is freaky. But so we got the sense that you want to see a kitty, Melissa? My name's Trinket. Okay, I just want to see how far I could break Melissa. Okay. We got to see that they did not have proper Christmases. They were on the road. Dad was, incommunicado, and that just wasn't Dean's gig. He was not into Christmas. He thought it was silly and foolish, and he just wanted to hunt. And Sam, Sam was a lot younger, and he wanted toys. He wanted the Tonka trucks and the whatever boys like, the price thingies like I had, with the little people and all that stuff. He wanted that stuff. It's like me. All right, true story. I wanted a Barbie dream house more than anything. I cried and cried and cried. I never got one. The year while my mom was sick, she said, I never forgave myself for not getting you that Barbie dream house. And I was like, it's all right, whatever. But inside I'm going, it could have been used. It didn't have to be new. It didn't even have to have the furniture. We can find furniture somewhere else. But outside, I was like, it's okay, Mommy. So I guess you could also say maybe eventually they forgave Dad for not being there on Christmases. Hopefully, we don't really know.
Okay, Melissa.
I'm going to disagree with Lola.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I don't think that it wasn't that Dean didn't care about Christmas. It's that Dean knew it wasn't a thing, and he was covering because he knew, because he was older, right? So he had maybe vague memories of what Christmas was like with his mom and dad.
Mhm.
And then everything, well, Mary blew up, not everything blew up, but Mary, you know, the whole thing. And so Dean is hiding. He is putting up this wall of, I don't care about it, blah, 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 because he couldn't care about it, because he couldn't have it. So it was that wall was a defense mechanism. And we know that he went and stole presents from the neighborhood for Sammy because he
That's
understood what Christmas was. He had some vague idea of what Christmas was like for other families. And so he wanted to try and give some of that to Sammy, because Sammy comes first. He didn't steal toys for himself. He stole toys for his little brother.
That makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah,
And?
I think that Melissa's right, that Dean somehow had some notion, you know, I mean, they watched TV a lot, and he had some notion of what, let's say, normal Christmases could be. And after his mother died, and of course Sammy was just a baby then, I like to think that he did things for Sam, like stealing the presents that we saw in that episode. And I like to think that he maybe did that more than once. That's what I like to think. And that, because I think in that episode, in the flashbacks, Dean is 12 and Sam is 8. And so that's a time when Sam is really starting to question. And of course, it comes out in the episode, what does our dad really do? Why is he never here? You know, what happened? What really happened to our mom? That kind of thing. And it comes out in weird ways. And then when we see the grown-up Sam, he's very much, you know, not into Christmas at all. And I think that's because Christmas was, well, as I watched half of that episode today, and he called it, and Dean says, yeah, we had a few bumpy holidays. Bumpy. I mean, you know, clearly they didn't celebrate Christmas or Thanksgiving or any of the normal holidays that we think of in any kind of a normal way.
Yeah, and I think you're right about, for all the times that they were stuck in a hotel room with the TV, they certainly have seen all the Christmas specials. They have certainly seen all the Christmas episodes. They know what it's supposed to be like with, you know, the tree and the presents and the lights and the Griswolds. And, you know, there's this ideal that most people don't really get. And Sam and Dean certainly, you know, even less so, but they knew. And I'm sure they also saw, you know, the holiday lights set up in towns, in the town square. Even some of the bars, you know, might have a Christmas tree or some kind of decoration. The diners might have had, you know, the kind of trees where people are supposed to pick off names for people and then bring the Toys for Tots kind of things. And I can imagine, you know, they had to stay separate from that so that the child protection people didn't take them away from John. But I can imagine Sam, without really understanding all those possible entanglements, being like, well, why can't we put our names on there, Dean? I want a bike. You know, there's no room in the Impala for a bike, Sammy. Okay, I want a truck. Well, no, we just can't. You know, and then Dean being really upset, and maybe he didn't break into other people's houses like he did that year that he got Sam the Barbie doll and the baton, but maybe he shoplifted, you know, Hot Wheels from the mini mart or Skittles, or, you know, something that would have been a treat that John wouldn't have normally wasted money on, even if it was just candy bars.
Right.
I could see him shoplifting little things and giving them to Sam, and then trying to make as much of an evening as possible out of maybe a bag of microwave popcorn in the hotel. And let's watch the Christmas special, Sammy. Don't you want to watch the Christmas specials? Charlie Brown's on tonight. Right. And of course, all those years when they were growing up, There weren't VCRs. You had to watch it when it was on. So that still would have been a little more special than it is now when you can have it anytime. So I can kind of see them doing that. Headcanon that we don't know what time of year well, I guess it would have been in the spring when Dean ended up at Sonny's because it was a school dance. I don't know,
Right.
but maybe he got caught shoplifting not just food but some stuff for Sammy.
Absolutely.
And the other thing that I think makes Christmas a problem for the Winchesters is that Mary died at the beginning of November. And everybody that I know who has lost somebody fairly close to the holiday season really has difficulty ever getting back into that holiday spirit because it's just too close. And so not only would they have lost their home and everything would have been crazy for Thanksgiving, but they're not going to feel a whole lot like a festive spirit 1 month later, for the first Christmas without Mary. I imagine John was blackout drunk.
My mom died 3 days before Christmas. I gave away all her presents to the people on the hospice care floor. I don't know if they ended up keeping them. I didn't even, open them. I mean, I packed them, so I knew what they were. But yeah, I just freaked out, and it took me years. I mean, like 2 or 3 years to get back. And even then, it's still kind of like, I started watching Hallmark movies. Oh my God, yeah, something happened, something clicked. I guess I'm trying to get back the holiday spirit through Hallmark. But yeah, it's really hard.
But I could see that factoring in with Sam and Dean. Certainly with John.
Yeah, I would like to have thought too that maybe there were some Christmases or Thanksgivings or other holidays that, I mean, in my head canon, that they perhaps spent with Bobby or Pastor Jim, and that maybe that also gave them a little bit more insight into a more normal Christmas. Although I can't imagine that Bobby would have had maybe a tree. I don't know.
He would share his hooch.
Bobby would have had a tree if he knew the boys were going to be there.
That's true. You're
like
right.
If John just showed up Christmas Eve on Bobby's doorstep, there would have been no tree.
No.
But if John had called Bobby to say, we're on our way, I need you to take the boys, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
There would have been a tree and there would have been some semblance of presence.
Yeah.
Because that's he raised those boys. Those were his boys. He would have, and he knew that John wouldn't do any of that stuff. So,
right.
Sam would have gotten a book and Dean would have gotten a knife or something.
Yeah. A car part.
I could even see Bobby, if John did show up on his doorstep, going out in the middle of the night and cutting down a tree from his own land and putting it up with maybe some, depending on the age of the boys, maybe having popcorn to string or, paper chains to make. And he could have given them each a weapon from his own stash or a book.
Yeah.
And any of that would have been a big deal for the boys.
Yep.
So I can see that happening. Now, I think the same is true for Thanksgiving. I think if Bobby knew they were coming, he'd have made sure he did, if not something better than KFC.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, Boston Market is what Dean mentioned in that episode. He mentions Boston Market.
Yeah, that's right. I miss Boston Market. We had one like 15 years ago.
Boston Market and KFC. I mean, it's chicken.
Yeah. Boston Market's a little more expensive.
But I could imagine, the same thing, that if John, called Bobby and said, I'm bringing the boys, and Bobby goes, oh, but it's Thanksgiving, he would have done something. Because you're right, Melissa, they were his boys, and he would have helped. He would have figured that out. And so I really think that, but I like to think that there were some holidays that they did have some fun, but there was that flashback in when in Dark Side of the Moon, when there were two flashbacks that had to do with holidays. And one was the 4th of July, where they set fire to the field with the fireworks. And then there was one of Sam's special memories was having Thanksgiving with a girlfriend, whatever, from school. And he said, Dean, it was my first real Thanksgiving. And Dean's like, no, we had Thanksgiving. But did they really? It was the first time Sam had been at a table with people in a traditional way.
In a house, because remember, even when we see them much later at Jody's house, the whole giving the girls the talk, Dean is like, I can't believe you guys eat like this every day. And Jody's like, Dean, it's chicken. Oh, this is so good. And you can just see Jody's heart kind of break a little bit because it's just chicken. But Dean thinks this is like the best feast that anybody's set in front of him in forever. And so even though I'm sure they learned to cook in the bunker, and we saw them cooking, not having a traditional holiday meal, I can imagine Dean, whenever he could, making sure to stop at maybe a little nicer diner if he could find one that was open, one that was all decorated up, and hey, Sammy, it's Christmas, get an extra piece of pie, or getting Sammy a frothy coffee or something, just even if it's not a big Christmas, doing a little bit to make it special, maybe hustling a little bit more pool so they could buy a nicer dinner or a little nicer hotel room. I could see Dean doing that whenever he could.
Save up for that. What was it, Red Rider? You gonna shoot your eye out?
A Christmas Story. Yeah.
Christmas Story, saving up for that.
Well, now what about Sam already had a 45 by the time he was a kid. True. So a BB gun's a little small potatoes. But what about the years that Sam was at Stanford and Jessica? How do you think he reacted to the holidays then?
Well, we saw him react to Halloween, because that very first, the first scenes with Jessica, they're going to a Halloween party, and he won't dress up because he hates Halloween.
Yeah, that's right. Because he lived it.
I think he would have had a very hard time with Thanksgiving and Christmas at Stanford. He didn't have any family to go home to, right? And when you're in college, especially that first, you're going home, and he had no family to go home to. He, for all that they would have had an awareness of what holidays were like on TV and whatever Bobby and Pastor Jim could have provided for them when they were kids growing up, there's a whole host of things that when you're talking about the holidays with other people, it's like, well, what were your traditions? Stuff like you start talking about all of the foods and the traditions. When you decorate the tree, did you open presents Christmas Eve or Christmas morning? The stockings, all that stuff that they would have had no frame of reference for. They wouldn't have had any experience. And so I don't think necessarily that Sam would have felt bad for missing out, because it's kind of hard to miss something, even when other people are talking about it. I think it's kind of hard to miss something deeply that you've never experienced that wasn't his normal. But having to lie and come up with some story and constantly being afraid that you're gonna trip over something because you're with Jessica, you're celebrating with her, she's gonna ask you something and he's not gonna have an answer for it. And the same thing would have been true to a certain extent with Dean with Lisa, but at least Lisa knew that the supernatural, so he wouldn't have had to lie as hard. But I still think he would have had to, it would have been intense.
It can be uncomfortable doing a big family Thanksgiving if the family's not yours and you're not used to it. Because my parents and I, we would go to a restaurant and let other people do it. We went to Shoney's, that's where we would go, or another place called Taylor's. And so that was our thing. And then later on, when like some of my other family would start inviting us to Thanksgiving and stuff, it was awkward because they all knew each other. I mean, I knew my aunt and uncle and my cousin, but they would bring in-laws, and other people out, the in-laws family, and I didn't know these people, and so I would just stand there and be like, so
Yeah. Well, I can almost imagine Sam going home with Jessica one year for Christmas, and he gets asked that question, well, what were your traditions like? He was flat-footed for a moment, and then just out of self-preservation, he starts babbling, and he doesn't realize until he's halfway through it that he's describing a Christmas out of one of the movies.
I can see that.
And her dad laughs and goes, boy, you guys in the Griswold, you must have been close. And Sam's like, oh my God, I just,
Yeah.
Right.
But I can see that happening, kind of on the spot. And then after that, maybe he made up reasons not to go home with her. Stayed on campus, volunteered to do something. I could see him doing that.
Yeah.
Now, you're right. Dean also spent that year with Lisa, and that would have been just as hard for him as the years that Sam had. How do you think that really, we talked a little bit about it, but how do you think that really went with Dean over Christmas? Did he go overboard trying to get things for Ben? Did he get into decorating?
You think he got Coca-Cola?
No, he would have been in a bottle.
Oh, I see what you mean.
He would have been in a bottle because Sam was gone, and he would have tried for Ben, but he would have had a hard time crawling out of the bottle because all he would have been able to see was all the Christmases they had together, all of the things he couldn't give to Sammy because he didn't have the means, because all kinds of reasons. And here's Ben and Lisa, and they have this perfect little life. And so he's gonna contribute to that, but it's gonna be really hard. I could see him he's gonna be walking around with a mug full of not coffee.
He might feel a little guilty too, because he's having this nice family. He's giving the kid this nice family with this nice meal with turkey and all the lights and everything, and it may kind of bring up the thought that he could do that for Sam. That's how I would feel.
And that Sam's in hell, or so he thinks.
Yeah.
So here I am topside having a nice ham dinner, and Sammy's in hell.
Right. That would be awkward.
Like,
busted. Sorry, Sam.
Yeah, right.
Oh, you were gone.
So moving ahead of those traumatic years, once we get season 9, season 10, they've got the bunker. They're a little more stable. Yeah, there's one apocalypse after another, but it's, they've at least got a home base. There has been, of course, a ton of fan fiction written about Christmas in the bunker and various cursed decorations and ghosts of Christmas past and present. But what's your headcanon about what they did or didn't do in the bunker? And especially once they got to know Jody and Donna and might have had people trying to haul them out for the holidays for their own good.
I still don't think they went all out, because they went all crazy when Mrs. Butters showed up. They were all crazy, like, oh my God, she's making sandwiches for us. Oh my God. So I still don't think, even when they were at the bunker, I still don't think they went all out as far as like food and stuff was concerned.
Well, I doubt if they went all out decorating the bunker either, because Dean was clearly so thrilled when they came back from that hunt and Mrs. Butters had decorated for Christmas. And there was a huge Christmas tree and Christmas cookies and the little train going around. And Dean was clearly so thrilled about that I think that they didn't do all that much in the bunker. I mean, I would like to think that maybe they did fix more of a meal, or maybe they went to Jody's for Thanksgiving, or and you know, it would be a Thanksgiving with Jody and Donna and whoever, even your favorite Gail, Claire. But anyway, I think that they would have, you know, that Jody would have tried to make sure that she included them in those kinds of celebrations, you know, if there was not, if it didn't come across, if there was not an apocalypse going on at the time. So
I can just imagine, you know, in the bunker years, so you've got an actual angel in the bunker. I can imagine if Cass was there being very literal about, well, you know, it didn't really work like this. Well, you know, the timing is off. You know, he was actually born in the spring and the wise men didn't show up for 3 years. And, you know, finally having them shush him and, you know, quit being so literal, Cass. Then what do you do if you've got Gabriel, you know, the actual messenger of God, hark the herald angels sing, and he's going, you know, the stable did not look like that. I'm just saying, and you know, the sheep didn't smell good, and
it's a buzzkill. I can get that.
You know, I can see Gabriel just going, you know, I don't know how this got started. Those Renaissance painters, I mean, man, they just ran with it. And then there's Chuck, and you know, that's an awkward conversation.
yeah.
Yeah, all those hymns.
That's just an awkward conversation, Chuck.
Yeah.
So I can see that being, you know, what do? We've got God for Christmas, you know.
Really a good dude.
Now I can imagine that they might have, you know, tried to do something for Jack, and again, awkward, but you know, what do you get an Nephilim who can, you know, snap his fingers, snap anything he wants? I mean, he could have probably even gotten a PlayStation 5 when they were sold out. But do you think they did anything for Jack or with Jack other than just maybe going out for a nice dinner? Or would Sam have wanted to try to, hey, Jack, this is kind of partially your heritage. I mean, what do you do?
Well, it would have to be, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Lola.
It would have to be after Dean stopped hating him. So I don't remember when that happened. And I imagine they would try to do stuff, but it's awkward when he's in the body of like a 16-year-old or whatever, and he's mentally 3. So what do? Do you get in the Tonka truck, or do you get in the baseball? What do you do? I don't know. Let him choose.
Well, maybe maybe play some new games in the Dean Cave. You know, maybe everybody gets a new download game or something. Melissa, what were you going to say?
Christmas is problematic in Supernatural, and especially once you bring in Jack, because we have Chuck is God, but that's, you never hear any, and you have the angels, but you never hear any. Jesus is not mentioned.
Yeah,
right? It's not part of, you know, Chuck never says my son. There's that doesn't exist in that piece of the world. So I think that the show deliberately didn't touch on that with Jack, because if you did, you're opening up a can of worms that they very consciously chose not to get involved in. So if they did anything with Jack, and I'm sure that they did, it would have been a much more secular thing, like the Charlie Brown Christmas tree, and maybe there would have been, instead of presents, because it becomes, Lola touched on it a little bit, that challenge of, he looks like a 16 or 18-year-old and he's smart, but he has all these weird experience gaps. So I think that they would have gone and done things like, taken him to, do something,
skating or something.
Get that experience, rather than, here's a Busty Asian Beauties collector's edition bag.
Well, maybe they would have done something like when Dean took him out and let him drive the Impala.
Yeah.
And
took him fishing,
burgers, and took him fishing and that sort of thing. I could see that, Melissa. I think you're right that it would have been problematic for the gift giving. side of things. And, and then, what do you do on Halloween? Because he really is Lucifer's son,
Ready made.
So,
Well, you can't really trick or treat and keep it a secret bunker.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I think the only time I remember Jesus being mentioned in the series was one of the first times Dean's talking to Cass, and he says something about he's sitting in a motel room with like a Gideon Bible, and Cass says something like Jesus died, and Dean's like, I read it. Like Cass says it like it's a spoiler,
I don't
but I think that's
remember that.
I don't remember that either.
I don't either.
But it was
But
early on when Cass was around and still extremely clueless.
Yeah. When, what's her name? Meg, not Meg, or was it the other Meg?
Dark-haired Meg?
Yeah, the dark-haired Meg started calling him Clarence.
Oh, that's right. She had
I
that
love
zippy
that.
attitude. Yeah, she was great.
And
I could see them
yeah, no
sitting
clue.
him down. Yeah, I could see them sitting him down and making him watch It's a Wonderful Life,
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
which, would have a lot of resonance being Winchester with all the times you've died and come back and changed time and had alternate timelines. Maybe it wouldn't be quite as warm and fuzzy a movie if you were a Winchester.
True.
But it might teach them a
True,
lesson about stop holding on to past hurts and, open yourself to other people.
And then I could see them having to put up with Cass going, I always had wings. I didn't have to earn my wings. There were no bells. No bells
Yeah.
rang. Nobody rings a bell when an angel being like, again, uber literal and everything.
Yeah.
Right. And Gabriel would have just gone nuts with it. He would have made it into the biggest joke on the planet.
Oh, yeah. Well, what about other holidays? I mean, what would they have done on New Year's Eve?
Thank God that year's over.
That's a great night to take a bottle of something out and sit on the hood of the Impala where you can see the stars and wrap up in blankets and watch the shooting stars, or I've done this a bunch of times, go find an overlook where there's going to be fireworks.
Oh yeah.
And watch someplace put them off where you don't have to be around the people, but you can see the fireworks.
Yeah, that's a good
I
idea.
see that happening.
Yeah. And drink. I think they would have drunk.
And
At
drink,
least when they
yeah.
were older. Yeah.
I'm sure there were New Year's Eves spent in some of the roadhouses and the bars because it was there.
Well, and I also would have thought that Dean would have thought that New Year's Eve was sort of another unattached drifter's Christmas.
Just Christmas.
For the lonely ladies who had nobody to kiss at midnight.
That makes sense.
Yep. I think so too.
I can see him dragging Sam along with him. Well, come on, Sam, don't be such a wet blanket. It's New Year's Eve. You don't have to do more than kiss if you don't want to, but come on, you're holding me back.
Yeah.
And kind of drag Sammy out so he doesn't spend the night, in the hotel room.
Yeah.
I can see that happening.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because it's a holiday that was made for partying.
Yeah.
As opposed to the other one.
I can also see once Rowena was in the picture, maybe there was something for solstice or Yule that she was observing and just, come on, boys, don't be such a stick in the mud. It's solstice. Everybody celebrates solstice, or just something to kind of poke them into getting out of their rut.
Yeah,
right.
That's true. She would probably be perfecting her her spells at that point because it's such a strong time of the year. She may be in, thinking of new spells.
That's also true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Easter's another one that's problematic, not only for the Jesus thing, but Winchester's rising from the dead, been there, done that. Do we really want to celebrate it? Pass the ham. I mean, I could see going out for a ham dinner at Biggerson's, but
yeah,
it's not. A lot of people don't really celebrate much on Easter,
not unless you're a big church person.
Church going type.
Yeah.
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 I remember like 15 years ago, I forgot it was Easter and I went out to get something to eat and I was like, everything's closed. What's up? And I was like, I just want Firehouse subs. And yeah, that was
Well,
my view of Easter.
I could see that being, a story where gotta remember to, grab something the day before, Sammy, because, all the civvies are celebrating Easter tomorrow. Everything's going to be closed, or they find the one bar that's open.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I was also thinking that that they might have done something on like Memorial Day or Veterans Day as a holiday because of John's service in the Marines and Bobby's too.
That's true.
That they might have that, that might have been one holiday that John wanted to observe. I mean, he would probably be drinking, but nevertheless.
It would still factor in.
Well, Lebanon, at least being in the state of Kansas and not perhaps as far away from Lawrence as they sometimes were, I could almost see Sam driving to Lawrence to plant supernaturally protective plants around Mary's headstone and make sure that it had all the magical plants that ward off bad things. And then maybe Dean's wondered where he's gone and he finds him, where would you be, Sammy? You're in the cemetery at Lawrence,
Yeah.
I can see that.
Yeah.
That's the kind of attentive thing Sam might do.
Yeah.
If it means something to them. Naturally.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think we can be pretty sure that Sam was not big on celebrating his birthday because nothing good ever happened on his birthday except his mom died, Dean got dragged to hell, Sam died, Sam came back. I mean, November 2nd was just a bad day for the Winchesters.
Rough time for them. Yeah, it's probably not happy.
So I can see Dean not in November, but at some random point during the year doing what he would have done to celebrate Sam's birthday, but not calling it a birthday. So it's not on his birthday. He's not calling it his birthday, but he'll better diner or, that book that Sam had been looking for. Like I can see Dean celebrating Sam's birthday, but never on or even around Sam's birthday because of the whole, mom dying, all of his birthday's cursed, kid.
Well, I could see. Go ahead, Lola.
Well, I was just gonna say, or maybe random times, he knows that Sam's having a rough day and he's like, you know what, let's go bowling. Screw this stuff. Let's go bowling. So he might make an effort, when on occasion to do something out of the ordinary.
I could see him even making up a day like, why are we eating at a better place tonight, Dean? Whoa, Sammy, don't you remember? It's the day you got your driver's license for the first time and I let you drive the Impala. Or knowing
right.
Dean, it's the day you lost your V card to that girl, Dean would do that.
Yes, yes, he would.
Yeah.
Became a man, Sammy. That's worth celebrating. Got to remember that.
You're a man now.
And I thought that they would have a field day with April Fool's Day. Playing, because they always play pranks on each other anyway. And April Fool's Day gives you a get out of jail free card on that. And because I love the time when Sam had put the super glue on the beer bottle and super glued, and then Dean grabs it and with his hand super glued to the bottle. I thought that was pretty fun. So
and that fish, that fish for the table.
Yeah. So I think they would have had a field day with prank wars on April Fool's Day.
I think so.
Yeah, and I can also see Sam as he stepped more and more into Rowena's role. As we got more of Samwich, and he became kind of Rowena's heir. Noting the Wiccan holidays and noting the phases of the moon and the times when, because there are definitely times when you want to set your protective amulets out in the full moon to cleanse and bless them, And I can see Sam maybe even setting up a little ritual area behind the bunker somewhere where he could do those kinds of things on the solstice and the equinox and the full moon, that would contribute to their hunting and their protection as his abilities increased. And
Right.
Sam and Dean kind of, I don't know how I feel about this, Sammy. I mean, you know, witches, but okay, it's Sammy and you're doing it. All right, I'll come with you. I'm going to sit here and I'm going to watch you. You know, can't you just see Dean sitting out there freezing to death on a stump?
Yep.
Dean, go back in where it's warm. No, I'm good, Sammy. I'm good. I'm right here. You know.
I can see him in his inside voice thinking this is BS, even though he's seen so much stuff. He's seen all the markings on the walls. He knows it works, but I could see him, just because it's not something that he learned to do as a hunter, I could see him thinking it's BS.
Yeah, I can. Just waiting for you to dance naked on the full moon, Sammy.
Yeah,
Being
happy.
shot,
See,
you know.
see, I can see Dean giving Sam a hard time about it verbally,
Mhm.
but I can also see internally he's proud because here is a
Okay.
skill that Sam learned,
Mhm.
and it's a different skill that he has, and I can see him admiring the effort and the benefits that comes from it. Like I could really see that,
Yeah.
even though he'll be sitting there running his mouth the entire time, talking trash, but you know, really
Deep
being proud of
inside.
Sam.
Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
I
Maybe not
agree,
able
Melissa.
to.
Yeah. And I would really like to think that at least once, maybe more than once, that they went to St. Patrick's Day in Savannah, one of the most
Yes.
haunted cities in America,
Yes.
and celebrated, because
Yes.
St. Patrick's Day in
Or
Savannah
Boston.
is wild.
Or
New
they don't fall in the river.
Or
New
Boston.
Orleans, you
Or
know,
Boston.
I could, yeah, or Boston, but I could definitely see them going to New Orleans as well.
Oh yeah. New Orleans.
Because that's another great place to party for Mardi Gras. Even.
Oh yeah, Mardi Gras for sure.
Yeah, and it's a great place for girls.
Yeah, I can see. Yeah, I can see Dean going, I'm not giving up anything for Lent, but you know, Sammy, just watch when those girls get the beads. Get an eyeful, Sammy. You know. So I can see that. And the food, you know.
Oh
If
yeah.
there is food, Dean will be there.
Oh yeah.
Especially like
we
the red beans
overlook
and
Your holidays here, guys. Other than unattached drifter Christmas, but we already know Dean's game plan for that.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Valentine's Day. Although I can also see Dean being there for discounted chocolate the day after.
That's true.
Yep.
He would go into CBS.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I could get
See him
that.
cleaning up on discounted chocolate the next day.
I can see that.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Leftover pie, you know, discounted stuff. I can see that.
Definitely.
Yeah. Leftover pumpkin pie after Thanksgiving.
Oh yeah,
Mhm.
definitely. Yeah.
Yep.
Just as a habit of any holiday, whatever that discounted leftover next day thing is, Dean's going to make sure he's taking advantage of it, because he's going to be bringing that home to Sam. Here's your Valentine's. It's a box of chocolate that's, you know, the heart-shaped box of chocolate. Here, you know, here you go, Sam. I couldn't get it for you yesterday. He's going to make up, when Sam was little, he would have made up an elaborate reason for why he couldn't have done it on the day. But yeah, those next day sales would have been a thing.
Oh
And
yeah.
I can see Sam growing up thinking the dates were always one day off from what they are.
That's what I was thinking. It's February 15th.
And then at a certain point, he realizes that he's always had the date wrong and why.
Yeah.
You'd probably laugh. Oh, that
Yeah.
makes sense.
I can see that. Well, folks, as always, we have blown through our time. So I think we've given everybody some new holiday headcanon. And certainly if you're a fan fiction reader, there's plenty of options out there for you to explore all sorts of things with the Winchesters on the holidays. But before we wrap up, tell everybody, please, where people can find you online, starting with you, Lola.
You can Google Lola Lariscy and I'm there. And the more I'm thinking about it, I used to make Barbie furniture out of boxes. So my
Mhm.
mom should have known all she had to do was get the empty thing. And there, but too late. It's okay. I'm moving on.
Okay. Clearly it doesn't bother you anymore, Lola.
I wonder if they still make them.
They do, and you can pick those up. I've seen them.
And I don't
So
need
it's
the
not too late.
furniture.
Hey, look at the really cool dioramas that Catherine makes.
Yes.
Never too late.
Never too late.
Never too late.
Might do
Melissa, how
that.
about you?
I'm Melissa. You can find me on the Supernatural TFWNC Facebook group that you run, or on Twitter, Tin Hat Daydreams. Mind the description on that Twitter handle.
Okay.
Okay, Ann.
I'm Ann Wicker on Twitter, no spaces. I'm also Ann Wicker on Facebook, and I'm Ann.Wicker2 on Instagram.
Okay. I'm pretty easy to find at gailzmartin.com, morganbryce.com. As Melissa said, I run the Supernatural TFWNC group here on Facebook. I'm a columnist for the Winchester Family Business. Most of the time you can find me here on Continual. And Lola, I've got to say, for me, it was an easy bake oven. So I totally, the feeling is real.
Yeah.
But most of the time you can find me here on Continual. So thank you so much to our wonderful panelists. And thanks to all of you for watching and listening. There will be more Supernatural coming up soon. So we'll see you online.